Hi everyone, welcome back to RPG PhD. I'm Dr. Ben, and today we're diving into part 5 of our Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition Learn to Play series. In this video, we're exploring how to prepare your campaign in the grim, gritty, and delightfully twisted world of Warhammer Fantasy. If you're craving a role-playing experience that blends Tolkien-esque fantasy with dark humor and a distinctly cynical British sensibility, you're exactly in the right place. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay sets itself apart from heroic fantasy RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons by focusing not on legendary heroes, but on everyday people thrust into extraordinary and perilous circumstances. I want to highlight some important considerations for running and planning your Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay games. Every game, group, and table is unique, and each GM naturally emphasizes different elements according to their players' preferences, and playstyle is exactly as it should be. With that in mind, I'd like to explore some broader principles to guide your session or campaign preparation. When planning your adventures, anchor your scenarios in gritty realism rather than traditional epic heroics. Instead of heroic quests to slay dragons, consider tense, grounded narratives such as villagers desperately defending their homes against rampaging beastmen. Ensure encounters have clear, immediate stakes like dwindling food supplies, outbreaks of disease, or serious injuries to heighten tension and emphasize the gritty, urgent atmosphere of the game. Critical hits in Warhammer aren't just dramatic, they're potentially life-altering. Embrace this mechanic deliberately by anticipating how severe injuries impact your narrative. For instance, if a character suffers a serious leg injury, plan out scenarios where mobility becomes a challenge, perhaps forcing them to adopt less physically demanding roles like espionage or becoming an advisor to local resistance fighters. Always keep critical tables at hand, enhancing immersion by vividly narrating the brutal consequences of combat. Or losing a limb or sustaining a grievous injury should dramatically impact your story, altering characters' options and creating opportunities for compelling roleplay. The career system in Warhammer is fundamental and unique. Rather than traditional class leveling, characters progress by moving through careers. As you plan your campaign, actively outline clear paths and narrative hooks tied directly to these careers. Unlike simply leveling up, career changes in Warhammer require thoughtful narrative integration by the game master. For example, a player aspiring to become a witch hunter might be required by a mentor NPC to investigate and uncover a secret chaos cult within their own hometown. Each career shift should naturally emerge from story developments, blending seamlessly into the game's grim narrative. The old world itself provides endless narrative possibilities influenced by medieval Europe, but far darker and more chaotic. As you plan, create richly detailed settings rife with incompetent nobles, corrupt officials, and endless strife. Imagine a town governed by a foolish noble whose disastrous decisions lead to famine or disease outbreaks, compelling your players to either overthrow them, exploit the chaos for personal gain, or simply try to survive the fallout. Also, emphasize the pervasive paranoia and inherent distrust among the populace, especially the common folk. People are suspicious, constantly wary of spies, witches, mutants, and hidden threats, creating an atmosphere where nothing can be taken at face value, and trust is hard. Warhammer's dark humor and cynical irony are essential. Incorporate absurd yet unsettling scenarios like stumbling upon a chaos cult operated by bumbling villagers who don't fully understand the dangerous rituals they're performing, or encountering a local physician renowned for miraculous cures, only discover their treatment involves suspiciously chaotic mutations, raising troubling questions with humorously disturbing implications. Humor here is not just comedic relief, it's a way to heighten the absurdity and dread of the world. Magic in Warhammer is extremely potent, but risky. Anticipate magical misfires by preparing scenarios involving dangerous consequences, like demonic incursions, mutations, or harmful magical backlashes. Keep the miscast tables handy and ready to reference quickly during the sessions. The gods in Warhammer are stern and unforgiving, so plan narrative moments where characters' actions risk angering divine beings, perhaps by desecrating sacred relics or inadvertently breaking holy laws. Detail the consequences clearly in your session plans, like devastating curses, widespread disease, or eerie supernatural occurrences, forcing characters into difficult quests for redemption. Combat in Warhammer is lethal and unforgiving. Encourage players to seek alternative solutions. Plan scenarios where diplomacy, stealth, or cunning are clearly advantageous over outright conflict. Perhaps infiltrating enemy camps, bribing corrupt guards, or cleverly manipulating rival factions against one another can accomplish goals far better than open battle. When combat does occur, meticulously describe the gritty reality, the mud-caked battles, the brutal injuries, and the chaotic retreats. The old world is constantly torn by war, political strife, and internal rebellions. Emphasize the presence of various factions with conflicting goals, from oppressive nobility to desperate peasant rebels. Plan scenarios that place characters amidst these turbulent power struggles, forcing them to navigate shifting allegiances carefully. Your players could become entangled in a brewing rebellion, ally with or betray factions, or simply try to survive as armies clash and intrigues unfold around them. The diverse species of Warhammer, such as dwarfs, halflings, elves, high wood and dark, and ogres, each possess distinct cultures, prejudices, and ancient grudges. Incorporate these tensions into your campaign to add complexity and depth. Dwarfs might refuse cooperation with elves due to deep-seated grudges. Elves themselves distrust humans for their reckless use of magic, and everyone tends to keep a wary eye on halflings, unsure of their true intentions. This inherent distrust creates a volatile atmosphere where alliances are tenuous and betrayal always looms as a possibility. Consistently incorporate elements like corruption, insanity, and disease into your campaigns. Gradually expose characters to chaos through tainted objects, cursed places, and insidious NPC influences. Insanity, paranoia, and madness should be looming threats, enriching your narrative with psychological depth and tension. Healing in Warhammer Fantasy is rarely abundant, particularly magical healing. Characters will often need significant downtime to recover from serious injuries. As a game master, plan accordingly, integrating realistic downtime and recovery periods into your campaign narrative. This approach adds depth and reinforces the brutal realism of the setting, encouraging careful decision-making among your players. When running Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, understanding how creature traits function is crucial. Traits in the game provide monsters and creatures with unique abilities and vulnerabilities that significantly affect combat and roleplay. One of the weaknesses of 4th edition is that creature stat blocks often require constant referencing of rules for abilities, size modifiers, and special traits. To mitigate this, always plan ahead by clearly noting creature traits, their effects, and special rules, allowing your session to run a lot more smoothly. Consider an encounter with a group of gores, the common beastmen lurking in the forests of the old world. Standard gores have traits like arboreal, fury, horns, night vision, and weapon +7. To enhance an encounter, you might opt for a more powerful gore by giving it optional traits such as armor 2, minor corruption disease like Packer's Pox, which you will also need to reference when a player becomes infected, or even making a large-sized Beast-a-Gore variant. Clearly define each trait beforehand. Creature traits like fear and terror shape encounters significantly. Clearly define these traits in your session notes, preparing players to deal strategically with such psychological threats. For example, encountering a demon might trigger terror, forcing characters to carefully consider whether confrontation is worth the risk or if fleeing might be wiser. Traveling in the old world can be perilous. Brigands, mutants, and savage beasts lurk in every shadow, presenting constant threats. As a GM, carefully plan travel scenarios, including encounters with ambushes by highwaymen, discovering mutant-infested villages, or dealing with treacherous weather conditions. Some paths could be deliberately dangerous shortcuts, tempting players into riskier but faster routes, intensifying the sense of tension and realism. So there you have it, a broad overview of some of the things that you should consider while you're running a Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay campaign. Remember, survival itself is often your greatest victory. Embrace the bleak humor, the harsh realism, and the grim thrills to create a campaign your players won't soon forget. And share your favorite campaign moments or your best planning tips in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with future videos. As always, keep imagining, improvising, and immersing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.